Welcome back, Focus learners. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer, which is specifically tailored for Grade 8 ELA. Our exact title today is Consumer Materials, Compare Poetry and Prose Problem Solution Essay. We're going to take a really fascinating journey today, learning how to critically analyze different types of texts, scrutinize consumer claims, and ultimately use all of that great information to build a rock-solid problem solution essay.
Okay, let's dive right into this. As grade 8 scholars, you're expected to do so much more than just read words on a page. You're expected to dissect them, evaluate their truth, and use them to construct powerful arguments. So we're going to start by looking at literary analysis, specifically comparing poetry and prose, and then we'll transition those analytical skills directly into evaluating consumer marketing materials for your own writing. Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. 1. Poetry versus prose. 2. Reusable water bottle problem. 3. Comparing structure and impact. 4. Checking claims with evidence. 5. The problem solution essay. And finally, 6. Recap and transfer task. Let's get started with part 1, poetry versus prose. We really need to kick things off with a massive paradigm shift. You know, we are so often mistakenly taught that poetry is only for expressing deep feelings, and prose is only for delivering straightforward facts. Well, today we are going to completely flip that assumption right on its head. Poetry is actually highly versatile and can inform us with hard statistical facts, while prose can be incredibly imaginative, emotional, and persuasive. Moving right along to part 2, the reusable water bottle problem. Let's look at this practically. Take a look at these two practice models side by side. First, let's read the short prose description. The plastic mountains stretch skyward, a crinkling monument to our thirst, haunting rivers for centuries. Wow. Now check out this 4-line poem on the exact same topic. 1 million bottles bought each day, while 90% are thrown away. A steel canteen breaks this chain and keeps the oceans free from pain. Notice how the prose uses sweeping, imaginative personification, haunting rivers, while the poem takes a completely different approach. So let's do a quick pause check right here. I want you to actively engage with the text we just read. Based on those two models, which format is actually delivering the concrete statistical evidence? Think critically about the words used in both texts. Take a brief moment to decide. Now, what's really interesting about this is the answer is the poem. Yeah, it acts as the highly informative piece here. It provides the specific hard data, 1 million and 90%. Meanwhile, the prose piece was the one relying on figurative language and emotion to paint a picture of plastic mountains. It perfectly proves our paradigm shift. Which brings us to part 3, comparing structure and impact. And this brilliantly illustrates the actual mechanical differences between the two formats. If we look at the purpose row, the prose is designed to evoke emotion and guilt, while the poem informs and provides a solution. Look at the diction or word choice. The prose uses phrases like crinkling monument, whereas the poem hits us with sharp, factual words like 90% and steel. The poem uses an AAB, rhyme scheme, and steady rhythm to really drive home that statistical evidence, leaving the reader with a sense of urgency and a call to action. But the prose, with its free-flowing sentences and abstract imagery, it leaves the reader with a lingering sense of awe and concern. As a reader and a writer, recognizing these structural choices is how you reveal the author's true intent. All right, on to part 4, checking claims with evidence. Grade 8 standards require us to assess the veracity of claims and the soundness of reasoning, basically figuring out if something is actually true. When you look at a consumer product, like that steel canteen mentioned in our poem, you have to evaluate its marketing. Here's a highly effective 3-step process. Step 1, read the consumer claim carefully to see exactly what is being promised. Step 2, check that claim against visible physical evidence in the real world. And Step 3, decide if the claim is valid, sound, and credible enough to use as evidence in your essay. Let's look at a practical scenario. We have a bold consumer marketing claim from the manufacturer here. This steel canteen eliminates all single-use plastic waste from your life. Sounds amazing, right? But then we have the visible evidence. The canteen arrives at your door, shipped and wrapped in 3 thick layers of non-recyclable bubble wrap. Here is our second pause check. I want you to actively evaluate this massive discrepancy between the text claim and the visible reality. Based on what you see, should you use this consumer claim as factual, supporting evidence in your problem solution essay? The answer is a definitive no. Absolutely not. You cannot use this claim as factual evidence because the visible evidence directly contradicts it.
The packaging itself relies heavily on single-use plastic, making the claim exaggerated and completely invalid. As a strong grade 8 writer, you must rely only on claims that are supported by verifiable, sound evidence. If a source contradicts itself in the real world, you cannot build a logical argument on top of it.
Let's move to part 5, the problem-solution essay. So the crucial point is how you actually structure this essay. First, you must introduce the problem clearly. In our case, the global crisis of plastic waste. Next, you integrate your evidence. And remember our paradigm shift? You can use the hard statistics from our informative poem and pair it with the strong emotional diction from our imaginative prose to really persuade your reader. Then propose a logical solution, like adopting a steel canteen, but make sure you support your claim with verified reasoning, avoiding false consumer marketing. Finally, wrap the whole shebang up with a powerful concluding statement that calls your reader to action.
And finally, part 6, recap and transfer task.
First, poetry can deliver hard facts, while prose can paint imaginative, emotional pictures. Second, comparing literary elements like diction and structure reveals an author's true purpose. Third, always check consumer claims against visible evidence before integrating them into a problem-solution essay.
And now for your transfer task. I challenge you to look around your room or your house right now, find a consumer product with some kind of environmental claim, and write a 4-line informative poem, either validating their claim or completely debunking it with the facts. Are you ready to be the investigator and the poet? Get to writing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.